This is a Tiny Desk sermon. I'm Michael Coffey, pastor of First English Lutheran Church in Austin, Texas. I wonder if I need a theme song for Tiny Desk sermons. If you have any suggestions, let me know. This is a first look at the readings for this coming Sunday in the lectionary and some initial reflections I have on them. The Sunday is the fifth Sunday in Lent, and the first reading for this Sunday is from Isaiah chapter 43, and that's what I'm going to be focusing on. It's a really remarkable reading, maybe because I love Isaiah, but it really is great. Starting at verse 16 in chapter 43, "Thus says the Lord, who makes a way in the sea, a path in the mighty waters, who brings out chariot and horse, army and warrior. They lie down, they cannot rise, they are extinguished, quenched like a wick. Do not remember the former things, or consider the things of old. I am about to do a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. The wild animals will honor me, the jackals and the ostriches, for I give water in the wilderness, rivers in the desert, to give drink to my chosen people, the people whom I formed for myself, so that they might declare my praise." All right, so in the first part of the reading, Isaiah is talking to his people in exile, way over here in Babylon, wondering how they're going to get way over here, back home in Jerusalem. To do that, the first thing he does is remind people that God is the God of Exodus. That's the language of saying, I make a way in the sea, a path in the mighty waters, and the chariot, and the horses, and the army, and the warrior. That's all Exodus imagery that God was, when people needed to get from slavery to liberation to freedom, what was in the way was water. So God parts the water, makes dry land to walk on, and then takes care of the enemies pursuing them. So, you might think that the first thing Isaiah is doing here is saying, remember, this is who God is for us. God did this amazing thing for our ancestors. So we should look for that. But then after reminding the people about the God of Exodus, Isaiah says, do not remember the former things. This is actually the Lord speaking through Isaiah. Do not remember those things of old. I'm about to do a new thing. And now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? So the first thing I hear in this text is that God's new thing often requires us to forget God's old thing. Because if we're looking for it to look the same, we might not perceive it. We might not see it. We might not be open to it. It might be the same liberation, the same setting free and new life that God is offering, but the way it's coming is going to look very different. And then Isaiah takes all the imagery and reverses it. Instead of dry land and water, God brings water and dry land. You got to have water to get from here to here if you're going through the wilderness. God will bring it. Rivers in the desert. And water in the wilderness. Drink to the people. People who are formed for myself. So the text makes me ask myself and us, what do we need to forget? What old things that we value and treasure that were life-giving do we need to forget because they're getting in the way of seeing and welcoming God's new thing? I wonder what things in the church we need to forget, what things you need to forget that church has been for you, that has been a barrier for you to go forward. I wonder what things we need to forget about our own personal pasts, the successes and the failures that are getting in the way of the new thing God is doing. God is always about the new thing that brings life, that brings liberation, that brings the gift of God's promised future coming toward us. Same thing was true with Jesus, as he presented himself as a Messiah of no great royalty, or not aspiring for personal prestige and power. And certainly a Messiah who dies on the cross required the people to forget what they thought and be open to God's new thing. So maybe at this point in Lent, and certainly in our lives, we need to forget some things, let go of some things, be open to some new things. And I wonder what new thing God is bringing into your life, into my life, into this world, as we all seek liberation, as we all seek life in the midst of so much strife. Peace.